Yeah.
So welcome everybody. Um, this is the regular Tuesday morning webinar. We do a webinar every Tuesday morning. First one is the one I do on sales and marketing. Bill then does the next one the next week on administrative and financial suggestions, ideas, and answering all of the big questions. The third week, Scott Tarpley with Drying Equipment Incorporated, who has commercial equipment, drying equipment all over the country. And Scott's been great for providing us with guidance on production. And then this one, the fourth week, Bill and I strive to answer all of the questions that either get asked to us verbally during the month or many times sent to us in the email form. And so we always try to answer those immediately with the client, but some of them are so unusual or compelling that we feel we need to answer them more broadly to the organization. Incidentally, the Q&A recorded webinar is always available publicly. The others are only available to CREST members with a username and a password. So I'm going to dive right in. Welcome, Bill. I know you're there.
Good morning, Dick. How's everything going?
Good morning. So let's try to jump to the first one. And the first question happens to be for me or one for me to answer. And I get this quite a bit when we're really getting into the nitty gritty about marketers. Are my marketers, usually being asked by an owner, are my marketers asking the right questions of the people they're calling on? You know, I don't know unless I'm writing with them, but I can tell you that traditionally, and the statistics are mind-boggling, people that have done incredible surveys and research on the topic of marketers asking questions, especially the question of, will you do business with me? The ASK, the ask, 85% of sales and marketing people do not ask the most important question. And the reason they don't is because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of being told no. But the fact is, anybody in sales, if they're really honest about it, it's extremely difficult today, more so than it was a few years ago. The fact is, today there are literally millions of products and services and variations of them. So it's really challenging to have one or two stock questions because they end up becoming generic. Secondly, almost everybody has gotten into the routine. You, me, everybody that's listening on this webinar and will listen later on, we all say the word nope, not interested, and we all get that response, no. When we walk into a clothing store and the clerk says, you know, can I help you? Our standard answer, even if we really want help, our standard answer is no, you can't help me. Because we don't want to be sold something. I believe you need to learn how to ask what I refer to as power questions. And these power questions are questions that make your prospect or your client think and think deeply before they're able to answer. And the reason they need to think deeply is because you've asked them a really thought-provoking question. One of the cool things that does is it makes the person that you're asking that question of, it makes them think you are brilliant. When you ask them questions that are specific to their industry, it shows you're familiar with their business. It lends credibility to the fact that you're paying attention to them and you care and you're aware of their pains, their issues, their challenges. It also gives you the opportunity to share how you can address or provide solutions for some of those pains that they verbalize to you. Nobody wants a superficial interaction. No prospect and no client nobody wants, hey, how's it going? Nice day today. Boy, it sure is hot out there. Boy, it sure is cold out there. Geez, I wonder if it's going to stop raining. Nobody wants that because that's idle chit chat that serves nothing for the prospect or the client. And it certainly, if it's being asked by you or commented on by you, it's just generic. You're going through the motions. So it is far better to ask serious, powerful, thought-provoking questions. And when you ask them, you'll get a totally different level of engagement and interaction with your client. Don't chat about the weather or your kids or a sporting event, at least not initially, because it doesn't initially enhance your credibility and doesn't build any trust. And last but not least, open-ended questions. Those that start with who, what, when, where, why, and even how. Those kinds of questions enable the prospect to respond with a far more elaborate and deeper and legitimate answer. If you give them a closed-ended question, they're going to answer yes or no. And then you're dead in the water. You can't go any further. So get in the habit of knowing who you're calling on. If you're calling on an insurance agent, know something about that insurance agent. Know what kind of products they sell. Know what their specialty policies are, and engage them with those kinds of conversations and questions. Thanks, Billy.
Great stuff, Dick. Thank you. Can my technicians also be marketers at the same time? I get this question from members all the time. And mainly it's because what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep their staff on the smallish side. You know, maybe you're a company that only has, maybe you're doing, 10 jobs a month or so, and you just want to do like a maintenance program and you don't want to invest in what I would call a full-time marketer. So is it possible for my technicians also to be marketers? And as much as I like to help out and try to keep those expenses low, my advice usually comes in the form of a question. And the question usually is, what do you hope to gain from those marketing efforts? If you're only marketing to preserve the market share you've already got, my recommendation is to have the owner himself or herself do that marketing. If you're that small that you're just trying to kind of just grind it out, there's a really good chance that you're just an owner operator and you're working real small, and it's okay for you to be that marketing person. Chances are, if you are that type of a business, there will be a difference between the owner seeing you as a potential lead source and an employee seeing you. Uh, the second part of that is, if you think that you want to use marketing to enhance and grow your market share, then I always say, why would you want a technician to do that? Because he's the very person who's going to get busier if he's successful at his own marketing. So I've seen it where somebody's gone from, 8 jobs a month to 12 jobs a month. And then what do? Now you have to remove him from that marketing schedule because he's got that much more work to do out in the field. Well, 6 weeks later, as we know, when you stop marketing, 6 weeks later, your company takes a hit. Sure enough, 6 weeks later, now the work goes back down to a pace of, 8 to 10 jobs a month. So you're really not, moving forward. You're kind of paddling or rowing in place. One person's rowing in one direction, one's rowing in the other. So you're just spinning. So, like I said, if all you want to do is retain market share, I would still prefer that the owner do it over a technician. If you want to grow, obviously your technician's going to, you know, make himself busier. And I never want to sacrifice quality of the jobs for quantity of the jobs. The most important thing is, even if you're doing 6 or 7 jobs a month, you're doing them perfectly right, as well as you can do them. You need to work on those processes. When you then grow your company, it's so important to make sure that those processes remain as perfect as possible. We all know that there's going to be mistakes. And yes, if you're doing 10 jobs and you go to 20, usually your mistakes will double, but the percentage of business that causes issues stays the same. That's your goal. You don't want to say, well, I'm sacrificing quality. So when I did 10 jobs, I had one issue a month. Now I'm doing 20 jobs and I've got 5 issues a month. That's not a good math for any company. So, for a very long, convoluted response to this question, the answer is generally no. They shouldn't market and be a technician at the same time. Let's invest in what we want to be able to do when we know we can do it to the best of our ability. Thanks, Dick.
Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing here.
You're good.
So, folks, I really hope you don't have an owner. There's a couple owners on here, and I know you don't look like that. Boy, Bill, I don't know where you found that, but that's one scary, sleazy sales guy.
That's no names, Dick, but that's one of our previous restoration clients.
Oh boy. Wow. So yeah, the question I get is, I'm the owner and people say I should be out there selling. Should I really be out there doing any kind of selling or marketing? And I got to tell you, Dick, I'm terrible at it. I can dry a building, I can talk with an adjuster, but I hate selling. I'm just not a marketer. Well, you're not going to like my answer. You, as an owner, absolutely need to be selling. I can keep it real simple and say, the well-known saying is lead by example. Okay. As I talk with these business owners, I often hear them say, and I was just on a call yesterday and had this conversation. I talked with business owners that say, my sales team just isn't making the revenue numbers. Last week, I got an email from a contractor who said, we're down by, catch this, we're down by $150,000 for the month of May. A lot of companies don't even do $150,000 in a given month. And this company is down $150,000 and they still had revenue. So the immediate question is the owner out there selling? Are you setting an example? At a bare minimum, I think you need to be writing with your marketers. Hey, you know who's going to be the most uncomfortable? The marketer. Because the marketer has the boss with him. That marketer has to be on their game. They have to be performing. Secondly, they really the owner should really be providing top-notch, top quality coaching and training, not just for their salesperson or their marketers, but for the owner themselves. They ought to be in those classes, also learning, also knowing what should be expected of the marketer, and pick up some of your own tips. And then it's my belief that the owner needs to have some very specific clients or targets or prospects that they specifically work on. I'm happy if the owner's goal is to bring one new prospect into the relationship a week. Only one. I understand that the owner wears many hats and doesn't have the luxury of spending, 6 or 8 hours a day out there soliciting and marketing. But at a bare minimum, that owner should be trying to get a luncheon with or a breakfast with a prospect to convert one key prospect every single week. And when you do that as an owner, it solves the issue of your marketer saying, it's so hard. People don't want to talk. The offices are all closed. They're not open to the public. The amount of crying and whining and sad sack stories, excuses that marketers can provide. And I coach a couple dozen marketers every week. I get those excuses almost every single day in some fashion or other. But those excuses really tend to go away when the owner is also out there doing his own marketing and selling and putting numbers and clients on the board. No longer does the marketer have the ability to use bogus excuses. And I just want to add, just to clarify here, the average marketer ought to be having a face-to-face interaction or contact. And I don't mean leaving a voicemail or sending an email, but an actual face-to-face contact or a Zoom face-to-face contact, between 12 and 15 of those face-to-face visits every day. I know marketers that are doing that, and those marketers are the ones that are going to do $1 million in revenue this year. Owners and managers who actively sell have a very current and a very intimate understanding of what the techniques are and what's working and what's not working. They're in a far better position to help their team members actually close business when they're out there engaged. And salespeople absolutely respect a boss, a leader who can help them close sales and also has his own or her own goals or targets, and the owner does their own achieving. at a bare minimum, when you as an owner act as the sales manager also, you better know the real selling environment. You better have established and created measurable goals and quotas, and you better hold those marketers accountable. You yourself better be skilled in the training and sales techniques that work in 2021, not in 2010. Or I'm dealing with a couple clients right now that are still living in the 1995 world. You need to be able to motivate your salespeople as well. And probably most importantly, as an owner or a GM, you need to establish and put it in writing, put it up on a whiteboard, establish your own quotas, and then go out and sell and prove to your marketers that you can and do achieve your own quotas. Hold yourself accountable. Billy?
Thank you, Dick. This happened to me last week. I got a call from an owner and thought we would discuss this. I just got 3 calls this morning for emergencies. How can I respond with just my small crew? Again, we're talking about a company with only 2 teams of technicians. Actually, they only got 3 in that day. So they got 3 calls and they had 3 emergencies and they had a 3-person response staff. So generally speaking, that when everything hits the fan, it's very difficult for any company to respond. But if you do a little bit of planning and training beforehand, you can actually work these out so that they don't become hindrances. First thing you have to remember is there's no way that you can turn down a call. There's no way that you should ever not answer the phone. Believe it or not, that is an option that many restoration companies explore. We want to make sure that we don't hang up the phone. We want to make sure that we keep answering the phone. Not answering the phone is tantamount to just saying, well, you know what? I've made all the money I want to make and I've got the jobs I want to have. We have to always be ready for that next call. How do we do that though with such small crews? It's a very difficult question. Well, when everything does hit the fan and when we have several different responses, the most important thing is we don't necessarily want to say we're going to go to house number 1 and we're going to do everything exactly like we do it normally. And then we're going to get to house number 2 or house number 3. We have to think a little differently. I've used this example in the past, but I'm old enough to remember a TV show from the 70s into the 80s called MASH. And the TV show MASH was about the Korean War, and it was about an army hospital over in Korea. And the one thing that I always took away from it is, they kind of were very much like restoration. They sat around and they joked and they laughed and they prepared, but every once in a while they would just get inundated with a whole bunch of injured people, and they don't come in 1 or 2 at a time where you can just parcel them out. Just like our business, we wish we could get a call every 2 days and then we'd be okay, but it doesn't work that way, guys. So in their case, they did something called triage. They went and they attended to everybody, but they made a decision on which ones were the most severe cases and they handled them first. But they managed to see and touch all of the victims and all of the wounded. Well, we need to do that same thing. We can't tell somebody, I understand your basement's flooded. I'll be out there in a day and a half because I'm too buried. We've got to come up with a process that allows us to respond reasonably and still be able to keep that customer's confidence, but not drive ourselves nuts. So what I recommend is the first thing you need to do is you need to develop processes for your triage approach. And that's going to be this. It's going to be take your crews and split them up. I know that sounds foreign, but if you've got crews and they're competent workers Maybe you don't have a crew leader, maybe you just have some helpers, but even those helpers, if they're competent enough, they can do some emergency service work. Okay, here's what I would like to see you do. You break up your teams and you break them up into one-man teams, and you go out and you get some temporary labor or some support work, or maybe you have a teenage son who's willing to work that day, and you hook them up with one of your team members. So you go from having one or two teams to now you have 3 or 4 teams. And those teams don't do the whole job. You take your least experienced guy, and he's in charge of going out, and all he's going to do is he's going to do extraction. So the first thing you're going to do is go suck up the water. Okay. Once you suck up the water, obviously we're going to get contracts signed. We're going to get all our work off signed the way we normally can. But we're going to have our first team go out and suck up water. That's all they're going to do. They're going to bring an air scrubber with them. They're going to leave the air scrubber and they're going to move on to the next job. And they're going to go suck up at the next job and they're going to leave an air scrubber there. You're going to inform the homeowner that the demo team will be by next. Then you take your next most experienced guy, hopefully somebody who's got pretty good skills and is clean, and you let them go out and do the demo. If there has to be flood cuts or if there has to be floor removal, they're going to go out there with their helper and they're going to do that piece of work. The last person who's going to show up at that house is going to be the person who's going to go do the moisture mapping and the setting of equipment. It's really, really not an extremely difficult process to think about or to implement. You just have to be prepared for it in advance. Identify your key personnel according to their strengths, and that's the order. So now you don't have one crew bogged down with 2 of your people on the same job. You're getting to all the jobs at a reasonable period of time. You're putting work into the house, but you're letting them know, because it's kind of crazy, your next crew will be back as soon as possible. So I never like to use the term spiking a job. I think that has a very negative connotation to it. But that's in essence what you're doing here. You're getting to the job, you're making the homeowner feel like you're being attentive to them, but you're also letting them understand that, this is an extraordinarily busy time. Remember, this doesn't happen all the time. And most times when it happens, it's because something happened in your area. There was a ton of rain, or there was a regional cat, or some sort of flooding event. So not only are you going to be buried, but all your competition's going to be buried as well. So you have a little bit of leeway. It's not like they're going to be able to call a competitor and be upset at you. And if it is something regional, chances are their friend, their family member, or their neighbor is going through a similar type of situation. So they will be more understanding. The most important thing is people want to know that you are responding to them. So you have to be overly communicative, make sure you are responding to them, but break those crews up. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You want your best people together. I understand that, but you need to get to more rather than try to pick and choose the 1 or 2 out of the 3 or 4 calls you want to get to. And number 1, first, last, and everything in between rule, don't ever stop answering the phone. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. I get this question a fair amount of time, probably a dozen times in the last couple months. One of the things that the CREST network set out to do is to provide expertise, coaching, guidance, administrative, financial, production help for clients that wanted to expand and grow into the commercial program with a very specific pre-disaster program, which of course is called PrEP. And oddly enough, so many of our CREST clients, we've only got a couple actually, that actually are still engaged and aggressively going after commercial or are doing that. The rest of them are still at the residential level, and I'm doing coaching and help with them on the residential side, insurance agents, plumbers, people like that. But let's provide first some facts, some specific numbers that I think are important to this particular topic. In fact, there are more than 4.5 million commercial buildings representing more than 93 billion, that's billion with a B, billion square feet of space in the United States. So what does that mean for you? For every 100,000 population, if you're in a market where there's 100,000 population in the market area that you cover, that means that there are roughly 1,600 commercial buildings. So if you have 500,000 people in your market, multiply that 1,600 by 5, and now all of a sudden you're at what, 7,000, give or take, commercial properties. Also, it's extremely important for you to know that 6%, this is across the board, excuse me, all commercial properties factored in, 6% of commercial buildings have a reported, that's a key word here, reported water loss every year. Or in other words, in a typical quote unquote territory of 400,000, that's 400 buildings a year. That is a huge opportunity for you. But for those of you that aren't ready to embrace the prep program and put on a almost or a full-time marketer to go out and sign up pre-disaster programs, then my recommendation to you is don't walk down the big city streets looking up at the skyscrapers saying, oh yeah, geez, I really want that job. Because that's probably not the right size for you at this point. I recommend, and I'm going to rattle them off. I actually had a list of them in front of me so I didn't forget them. I'm going to rattle off the kinds of simpler, easier properties that you can go after. You can even develop relationships with the ownership or management of those properties. So here they are. And if you want a list of those when this webinar is done and you don't want to go back and watch and listen to what I rattled off, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the list. Restaurants, and I'm talking about local restaurants, not the chains. Grocery stores, once again, the locally owned grocery stores, not the big chains like Kroger or Publix or one of them. Auto body shops, auto repair shops. Folks, these are people you know that you can interact with, and often the owner is there at the facility and you can have that conversation. Convenience marts like Circle K's or 7-Elevens, your local doctor and dentist's office, your lawyer's office, your accountant's office, fitness centers for those of you that get up at 5 in the morning and go work out, strip plazas. And now I'm going to be very specific here. I'm not talking about all strip plazas. I'm talking about the one-story strip plaza that an owner, local owner, owns, and it's got 6 or 8 or maybe 10 units in it. Funeral homes, real estate agencies, other mom and pop businesses. Folks, these are great, local, easy to get to places that you can go and build relationships with. And now I want to rattle off for you. Some of the larger verticals that are a little more challenging. And if you haven't really been ready to tackle commercial yet, these probably are a little bit out of reach, but I'm going to let you know what they are. Hotels in the hospitality world, nursing home, assisted living, elder care facilities, sometimes called memory care, large strip malls and strip plazas, major doctor and dental office groups, schools, colleges, and universities, city and county municipal facilities, industrial complexes, hospitals, churches. Many of my prep clients have many of those that I just rattled off: hotels, nursing homes, strip malls, medical facilities, churches. They have them in their portfolio. And I have one specific client that texts me every time he gets a commercial loss from one of those prep priority response emergency program clients, and he's getting them every month or more often, because he's signed up 37 million square feet into the program. It took him to a whole new level of operation. The fact of the matter is, there are some things that you should be saying when you're calling on those local, or I'm going to call them right-sized clients, your local prospects, for those people that want to tackle these early initial commercial properties. You better know their name. You better know how to say their name. You better know how to spell their name. You better be able to remember their name. You need to talk about things that matter to them. Remember, they don't care about fire, water, smoke, and mold. Every marketer that I run into initially wants to say, oh, we're XYZ company and we do fire, water, smoke, and mold. And it just drives me crazy, because I don't know what it means. And so I do, but your client doesn't know what it means when you say, we do water. I don't know if that's, you do water because you drink Zephyr Hills bottled water. You do fire. What are you, a pyromaniac? I don't know. They don't care about fire, water, smoke, and mold. They care about the things that you can provide that help them get back in business when disaster strikes. They care about having access to a hotline, a 24/7 phone number that is answered live, that will help them at 3 o'clock in the morning. You should be providing those commercial clients with a copy of the policyholder Bill of Rights. If you don't have one, email me. I'll send you one, and I'll send it to you in Word, and you can put your own logo on it if you want. You should ask them for their email address. You should ask them if it's okay to send them a periodic newsletter. After your first visit with them and they graciously listened to what you had to say, send them a written, personal, handwritten, by the way, thank you card in the mail. Nobody does it today. So do that, and you will be a standout. And I would be remiss if I moved past this and did not rattle off a couple things you should not say. They don't care. Let's talk about this. This is something you don't need to tell them right now. They don't care about the details of your business. They don't care that you have 5 trucks, that you have 15 employees, that you are IICRC certified. They don't care about that. Are those things important? Of course they are. But your client, your young, small commercial client doesn't really care about that. They don't want to know that your company and your people care more than the competition, because you don't really know if that's true. Please don't promise a 15-minute or a 30-minute or even a 60-minute response time. You're setting yourself up for failure. I see this on company websites all the time. We guarantee to be there in 30 minutes or less. Wow. I'm not sure how you do that when they're 45 minutes away and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's an ice storm. Going to be a problem. Simply don't overpromise and underperform. It just doesn't work. Billy?
Appreciate it, Dick. Thank you so much. Worked on this last week with one of our clients, and I thought it was really important because we haven't discussed this in quite a while. I believe maybe over a year ago, I put together a 1-hour webinar on this. What's the best commission structure for my business? And once again, just like many things that we do with the CREST network, that answer is very specific to your own business. You know, the makeup of your business, the size of your business, and the modeling of your business. There are some people who pay their sales and production teams straight commission. And maybe every week they'll get a draw against commission, but they'll pay straight commission. There are others who pay a very, very, very small commission, almost like it might add up to nothing more than what you would do, like if you were going to give somebody a gift card, something that I would consider insignificant. And then there's a bunch in the middle who pay a salary and a commission. And the trick is finding the balance. What I'd like to say is that there's really no one great way to do it. There are many good ways to do it, but the great way really depends upon your tolerance. I'm a big believer in a model that I try to install into companies where the owner is looking to grow the business. Again, if you're in a maintenance business and you're just happy with where you are, then the commission structure really doesn't matter unless you're really concerned about keeping good people. And I still say, if you're going to keep good people, I wouldn't use commissions as the carrot. They're never going to be happy because no matter what you give them, they're still going to look at the business and they're still going to think you're making a ton more than they are. They're doing all the work and you're getting all the benefit. So if you want to keep good people in a stable business, I believe you should just pay them a higher salary because now you're rewarding them for just showing up. Anyway, that's a little aside. And as you can see, there's a lot of different nuances here. Let's talk about the commissions. I believe the best commission structure is one that I called shared pain, shared results. I think you should pay somebody a livable salary, but not enough where they can enjoy their life, just something that they can pay their bills. I'm not a huge fan in the commission only structure. Actually, in some states, it actually violates the law because you can't force somebody to work for you. And then should they have a downslide where they don't get any business coming in for a period of time, if you don't pay them, that actually violates some laws in certain states. So a lot of guys get around it by doing an either or. You're either going to get the commission or you're going to get some de minimis amount, some minor $10 an hour kind of salary, and then they cover themselves by the law. But basically what they're doing is just kind of skirt the law, but they're still treating the people as commission only. I understand the mindset of those who want to pay just on commission because they want to sit there and say, well, if they don't do their job, they're not going to get paid. Well, guess what, guys? If they're not doing their job to the point where you don't have to pay them, you're getting nothing out of them anyway. Their job itself should be the threat. I always say that. Well, I don't have to pay anything if they don't perform. Well, all those other expenses, the car and the fuel and the meals and all the marketing materials you're providing to them is still costing you money. Why would you ever want to hire somebody and then be happy that you're not paying them? It makes no sense. So I think we should have this structure where you pay somebody a livable salary, but they can enjoy the finer things in life. So they can afford to feed their families, but they can't take them out to a nice restaurant once a week. They can't take them on a really nice vacation. All those extra things have to come from their commissions. Now, you heard what I just said. That means you can't pay somebody 0.25% of commissions, because at $1 million of production, which is what Dick and I both know that a seasoned marketer should be able to generate, 1% of $1 million is only $10,000. And I use the word only because I'm trying to put it in perspective here. If you're rewarding somebody to bring in $1 million of business to you, and all you're giving them is $2,500, because like I said, I used the example of 0.25%. Yes, there are people who commission their staff like that. You're obviously not getting the incentive high enough where it's going to make a difference in somebody's life. That's $200 a month. They can barely pay taxes on that and have anything left for a decent life. Let's talk about numbers that really work. If you're going to use percentages that really work and you're up in the 2, 3, 4% range, here's what I meant about shared pain. We have to do some analysis, and we have to figure out within your company, how much do you need that marketer or that production person to generate in business or to execute in business for the company to pay its bills? That's what I call a break-even number. I believe that break-even number should be shared amongst everybody. Everybody should know this is what we need to operate at. We need to bring this much in for us to pay our bills. That's going to cover their salary and a very small commission, a point or two. Once they get above that number and we're generating numbers in excess of that, the reality, guys, if you're an owner, you'll understand this. Every penny that gets generated on that job, after we pay direct costs, the gross profit on that, every penny goes in your pocket because we've already covered the cost for the year. So think about it this way. If the first $500,000 of your business covers all your costs, you don't have a lot to give that guy in terms of commission. But if the second 500,000 of that $1 million is all profit, and you're operating at 70% profit, you've got $350,000 going into your pocket. How much more of that would you be willing to share with that marketer to make sure he's working his butt off to get over what you need to get you into the I'm putting money in my pocket? You see where I'm going here? I structure plans like this. We have commission structures with some CREST members that look like this. The marketer gets a salary, then they get 3% of the first 600,000. Then they get 5% of everything above that. We're accomplishing two things there. We're giving them a carrot to shoot at, but we're also making sure at the end of the year, they don't start taking it easy saying, well, I worked pretty hard. I'm pretty happy with what I have. I'm just going to coast at the end of the year, which happens in a lot of companies. The holidays, the time of year, people just want to take a break. Now, because you're telling somebody, work your butt off in December and you're going to make 5% commission, that same work a month later in January goes back to the 3% commission. Now we're really incentivizing them to work really hard to put more money in our pockets. That's that shared reward piece of it. So that's the kind of commission structure I really like. We don't have enough time for me to really go into it in more depth, but if you do have questions, or if this sounds like something you'd be interested in doing, because it does really motivate everybody on your team to work harder for you, but also be part of the plan. If you do have any questions or you're really interested in this, just drop me a line and I'd be glad to have a conversation with you. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. This next topic is somewhat sensitive. It's somewhat frustrating. I personally, and many of you have expressed to me your aggravation, your frustration over this. And what I'm really talking about is obviously the pandemic that allegedly took us by storm, roughly March of last year. And so there's been talk since like June, July, August of last year. Oh, get ready for the new normal. Get ready. There's going to be a new normal. And I'm often asked, what is this new normal and how does it impact marketing? I'm going to take it just a step further. Um, this was the key question that was asked, but I want to talk just a little bit broader about another area of quote unquote the new normal as it impacts us as disaster recovery companies. The fact is, the world has changed, whether we like it or not. The pandemic of 2020, really, it was 2020, has and will continue to require a new and a different attitude, and most certainly different business processes for the foreseeable future. Certainly, we're halfway into 2021 now, and we are already seeing many of those quote unquote new normals. Whether we like it or not, our daily life has changed. It's changed at home. It's changed in public. It's changed at work, pretty much everywhere we go. I was at the doctor's office earlier this morning. And yes, even though I'm one of these guys that absolutely refuses to wear a mask, I was wearing a mask because that's what my doctor wants. And if I want to see my doctor and ideally, theoretically, stay alive longer, I better wear a mask or I'm not going to be seeing the doctor. Clients, customers, our employees, the public at large, they're all fearful, many of them, of this virus. In fact, many of them are so fearful that they don't want to go back into the classroom. They don't want to go back into the office. And so one of those new normals that's happening across the country is many companies are not gathering back at the original office and packing people into cubicles and conducting business out of their one location. More and more are doing the new normal, which is working from home. And they're working from home by way of Zoom and GoToMeeting and Microsoft Team and various other video conferencing methodologies. You know, in the past, our customers mildly cared about how we treated their home and coming into their home. Today, the general public really cares. They might not have previously, but there is so much beating of the drum on TV, on radio, in magazines about social distancing and getting vaccinated and cleaning your hands with an antimicrobial and so forth. Okay, yeah, in the past we wore booties into the customer's home, but that was so we didn't track mud in. We put down walk-off mats. We used protective runners. We used corner buddies if we were doing carpet cleaning. We did other things to reassure the client that we were being respectful of their home. Today, and as far as I'm concerned, for the next several years, and maybe longer, and I don't have that crystal ball, but certainly for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, your customer is going to expect you to limit the access to their home wherever possible or practical. They're going to expect you to wear, in many cases, personal protective equipment. in gloves and or goggles and or masks. They're going to expect you to clean and disinfect all surfaces. They're going to expect you to use tablets and phones for signatures. They're going to expect you to use email instead of printed paper documents. Touchless payments. And you already know much of this has happened. Our banks are sending us new credit cards that are touchless. You tap the card on the spot on the register to make your payment. They're all coming. We were at a pizza parlor recently, and we paid for the food by touching our card to a little machine that sat on the counter, completely touchless. Many companies now have gone to sending a text to their customer when the excuse me, when the technician or technicians are on their way. Many times they're sending a text with a biography of that marketer that's coming. So the people not only know his name, but they know he's married, they know he has 3 kids, that he has a dog named Boo and whatever else. And it adds to the personal interaction. And now I'm going to get into some other things that are really back to the new normal as it relates to marketing. I started doing this last summer, and I do it on almost every single coaching call today. I do Zoom calls. Most of my calls are 1 hour, and I'm on camera for 1 hour. Long gone is the days when I can sit at my desk in my shorts and a t-shirt, or sit out on my lanai smoking a cigar while I'm talking with and coaching a client. Nope, I'm on camera. My hair better be pretty. I better be clean shaven. I better have a nice shirt on. And oh yeah, if I'm going to stand up to reach something on my desk behind me, I better be wearing long pants. Okay. So Zoom and video calls are well received now for doing the initial viewing of damage and conditions. They're also great for client interaction and marketing from my perspective, working with my client. But beyond that, I coach my marketers, and most of my marketers today, where they, especially those that are in New York or in areas of Texas, where you can't, where offices are closed, St. Louis, where an awful lot of offices are closed, Michigan, you can't go into an insurance agent or a plumber office. So most of my clients, my marketers, are doing Zoom video calls or Zoom calls with those clients, so they can have as close to the real thing, as close to face, excuse me, as is possible. Another crazy one. Who'd have ever thought that we'd be going back to the telephone? But yet today I'm telling marketers, look, if the office is closed, if you can't get in front of them, pick up the freaking phone, call them, talk to them, see if you can arrange with them a Zoom meeting, but at least pick up the phone. For so many years, we let the phone go dead and dormant because we wanted to be even more passive than that. We wanted to just send an email and cross our fingers and hope they would respond, or shoot out a text and hope that they would acknowledge our text. Folks, that isn't adequate anymore, and especially in the world of the new normal. Re-engaging with a telephone, as I would have never believed 2 years ago that I would be telling my marketers, pick up the dang phone and talk to your clients but now I am. These new attitudes combined with what your clients, your prospects, your customers are demanding for their business, it really has ushered in an entirely new business climate that's commonly referred to today as the new normal. The fact remains that business has radically changed since early 2020. And now moving into halfway into 2021, it's not going away. So you better learn to embrace it and figure out how you're going to market in this new normal.
Thanks, Dick. We're gonna work on this one real quick. It's halfway through the year. Should I be looking at my mid-year numbers for any issues? Real simple answer, yes. This is actually a great time to analyze. If those of you who are CREST members worked on creating budgets with me early in the year, this is a great time to look at your mid-year numbers, look at what your budget for the year was, and see where we're at. At the end of June, you'll be halfway through. So if your numbers are not halfway on the revenue side, let's start figuring out what those issues are. If your numbers are more than halfway through on the expense side, let's start looking at that. Where did we make a mistake in looking at what we thought we'd spend? Maybe there's timing issues for insurance or things like that that we're paying more upfront. We need to know those things. But this is a great time because it's never too late to make changes to what's going on in order for you to still reach your goal. You know, I'm a big sports fan, and one of the sports I actually love is horse racing. And in a horse race, there are some guys who take their horses out and they run and they're on the lead all the time. There are other guys who take their horses back and they come from behind. Well, the race isn't over until you cross that finish line. So this year is only halfway over. Nothing is beyond repair. Nothing is beyond fixing and tweaking. And whether it's marketing, whether it's production, whether it's closing ratios, no matter what the issue, it's not too late to address. The only way it won't be addressed is if you put your head in the sand and you're one of those owners who just operates your business by keeping your head down and moving forward that way. If you don't pick your head up, you'll never know where you're going and you'll end up crashing or driving into the ditch. So let's keep ourselves aware. Even if you know for a fact that it doesn't look good, rip that Band-Aid off. Let's analyze it now. Let's take really positive steps towards moving forward for the next 6 months. And even if it means that we're only going to salvage the year, that's still a lot better than continuing to do what we're doing. That's just insanity. We know the definition. We've heard it before. Don't be afraid to take a good look at your company. This is a perfect time to do it. As always, for all you CREST members, you know where to reach me. We talk all the time. One of the things we'll be doing early in July is we'll be doing this exact thing. We're going to analyze the mid-year numbers, and we're going to look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and we're going to look at all positive steps for the second half of the year. So even if you're not a CREST member, this is something you should be doing with your teams and with anybody who has any input into what's going to happen in the second half of the year. Very, very important that you guys take this up as a number one priority as we end this month of June. Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. On behalf of Bill and myself, thank you. We're going to convert this. It's been recorded. I'm going to convert it. And for those of you that are on this webinar that are not CREST members yet, I'm going to send you the YouTube link of this video so you can rewatch it. There were a couple things on here that I mentioned. If you'd like me to email those things to you, I will be happy to do that. Otherwise, we've exceeded our hour. And so I thank you all. Thanks for tuning in and watching our webinar for the CREST Network. Bye-bye.